Welcome back, everybody. We are delighted to bring on to the show Representative Austin Scott from the great state of Georgia, the Peach State. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Amanda, thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you, but, a report that I'm not happy about, obviously, the baby formula shortage is something that's affecting a lot of Americans, mothers across our great country, and now we find out that pallets of that essential item are being shipped to the border. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just it's not good. It's not right. And I got a text this morning from a great friend of mine saying, "Hey, my son needs to talk to you about the baby formula issue. They have a child that's got some allergies and requires a specific type of formula, and they can't find it. And it's creating a very difficult, a very serious situation for a lot of my constituents and personal friends in this case. And so I don't understand why we didn't get alerted by the Food and Drug Administration and others in the supply chain that this was coming. And I don't understand why they didn't do anything about it. And then now for them to take the U.S. supply and to ship it somewhere else, it just simply, it defies logic to me.
Yeah, it really does. And you joined, I think, more than 100 House Republicans in sending a letter to that FDA Commissioner, Robert Califf, asking him to immediately address, hey, what's going on here? One of the things we learned, sir, was that the warnings about this plant went back to last October, and the Biden administration sort of fumbled for 3-4 months before they took action in February, sort of leaving a 4-month gap where we could have got ahead of the problem. Is this another example of competence we were promised that we're not getting from this administration?
Sure. Pretending that a problem doesn't exist does not help anybody at the other end of the equation. And so, as you see problems starting to happen, a leader, whether it be in business or in politics, is going to go ahead and address those problems instead of covering them up. And it would have been better to admit several months ago that we had a small problem, what would have been a small problem then that we should have been working to address. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. I don't expect Biden to change. I think it's going to be up to the voters in November to change the way things are being done in Washington, D.C. And certainly then if you give Republicans control of the House and the Senate, we will put language in any of the appropriation measures that stop some of this madness.
Yeah, for sure.
Congressman, a few days ago, Congress approved $40 billion to go to aid Ukraine. 57 of your colleagues voted against it, including 3 from your state. What was in it that made you vote in support of it with all of the problems we have here at home? I know there had to have been something in it that you thought, we've got to get this done, we've got to pass it.
Sure. So I'm on the Armed Services Committee, as you know, and I've spent a tremendous amount of time in Europe. I've been in India and Australia lately on the Indo-PACOM related issues. What I will tell you is that I do not think that Vladimir Putin was going to stop with Ukraine. I think that he would have been moving through Moldova, or he would have turned and moved towards Georgia, the country of Georgia at this stage. Belarus is basically his little cousin as it is, so he doesn't have to take them. The president there will hand it over. So I think that it is better to fight Russia right here, right now in the Ukraine. The Ukrainians have done an extremely good job of handling the Russians, courtesy of NATO, the United States, our partners in there that have been getting the intel and the weapons to the Ukrainians. And so I'm all for getting the Ukrainians the more advanced weapon systems to continue to fight the Russians and to push the Russians back into Russian territory. And I want to tell you one of my concerns now. I don't want the world to encourage the Ukrainians to accept Russia being across the border anywhere, not the Donbass, not any of the regions that Russia was already in before they tried to move again this past year. They need to be out of Ukraine, period. And so that's going to require some additional weapons, some additional supports for Ukraine, and it's time to beat Russia right now. And the Ukrainians are doing a pretty good job of it. And so do I think we should have had more time to read the legislation? Absolutely. But ultimately, right now, I believe it's very important for the United States to give the Ukrainians the weapons and the support that they need to continue to defeat the Russians.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are seeing the progress that's being made now too. Seeing is believing, and there's been some pretty remarkable progress. So I want to talk about another part of the world that you just came back from. I know you just came back from India, and you see, I think in India, one of the great contradictions of the Biden administration trying to impose clean energy here and kind of accepting an entirely different approach in one of the largest energy consuming countries of the world. What was your takeaways from coming back from India?
Hey, my takeaway is just how hypocritical corporate America is with the whole, this whole environmental and socialist government movement that they keep pressing inside the United States that they totally ignore in other countries. And so if you go to India, where these countries that are saying we shouldn't be using fossil fuels in the United States, those industries that are spending billions of dollars over there growing, and you know where they get their energy? 100% of it comes from coal, 100%. So you're in the United States trying to force us to abide by a standard so that you can get a good ESG score from the Security and Exchange Commission, which shouldn't be happening as it is. The SEC has no business in doing ESG scores. But then when you go to another country like India, where women have very few rights, they still have a caste system, and it's literally against the law to change your religion. It's just absolutely hypocritical for corporate America to say, look at the standards we're going to set on American industry and how good we are with the whole ESG movement, while at the same time you're going to India and doing the exact opposite. I mean, hypocritical is the only word that fits it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's astounding. I wanted to ask you something else with respect to India, and I don't want to throw you a curveball, but I know that as far as the pollution standards and such there, it's a very different story. But something that I found interesting about India, and this is hearsay, this is anecdotal, but hearing the way that India handled COVID and the way that they made available to their citizens a lot of different therapeutics, and they kind of did, a trial and error type thing there with respect to treating COVID. What did you witness there? What did you learn there about that?
Yeah, so the thing you got to remember about India is that the 1.4 billion people in a country that is smaller than the United States of America geographically is. So you've got extremely high density of the population in certain areas. And, I don't think that they had the ability in some cases to do anything other than the therapeutics. And so we in America, we trust that when we go to the doctor and we get a vaccine, that we're actually getting the vaccine that they tell us we're getting. I think in many parts of the world, they don't have that. And so in some cases, it was a supply. In some cases, it was a lack of trust of the general public, and it was just sheer necessity that they use therapeutics. But it is we're very blessed in this country, the United States of America. We can grow our own food supply here if we'll get out of the way of the American farmer. If we'll stop making them pay $6 a gallon for diesel, we can have all of the food that we need. Other countries like India that have 1.4 billion people on a geography significantly smaller than the United States, they don't have that advantage with food or with medicine that we have. Now keep this in mind. When I say that, a lot of our pharmaceuticals come from India. If you actually look at the label at the wholesale on the wholesale bottle, a lot of our pharmaceuticals come from India, and that's another industry that we should have never let shift overseas.
Yeah, no doubt. We only got about 20 seconds, sir, but I know you have very strong thoughts about what's going on with the Supreme Court, the protests at their home. Can you give us a quick take on that?
Yeah, I mean, what if Trump had encouraged that? I mean, what would be happening right now if Donald Trump's press secretary had said, "Hey, you know what? The justices are going against what I agree with, and so I think you need to go to their homes and you need to protest where they and their family live." I mean, the outrage would
have been a very different story.
I just think it's just the bias of the press.
Yeah, you're right.
Congressman, thank you so much. I agree, absolutely. And we'll have you back on to talk about that. We've got much more.